What's going on, guys? Andrew Piluk Hockey here, back again with another video. It has been some time, but I am ready to make videos again. I needed a bit of a break from all the things that I was doing, so I gave myself a little bit of a break. And now we get to talk about a brand new season for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And in videos like this, I've done before because I've been doing this for a few years now. I always like to dwell on the past in terms of their past results, and I keep talking about the past. We know what the past is. We know what this team went through last season and the year before that and the year before that. It's time to only look a little bit into what happened, but to actually look into what is going to happen, what could happen, how good can this team actually be. I don't want to talk so much about all these losses in the first round because I'm dealing with a lot of first round losses here. The Blue Jays, again, just I don't even want to talk about it, but I need to talk about the present. And I think, like a lot of Leaf fans, and I've seen this kind of across the board, a lot of Leaf fans kind of avoided thinking about this team all summer. They were kind of watching other things, thinking about other things. Like usually in the past, I'd watch like all these goal compilations and think about the Leafs until they played again. But I didn't this time. I needed a cleanse from Maple Leaf hockey. And I'm excited for another season. And that's what we're here for, is to preview the 2022-2023 Toronto Maple Leafs and look at what this team could be, who's on the team, what the lines are going to look like, and expectations. So again, like I said, we'll just briefly talk about it. But before I even get into that, like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Join the squad. I'd love to have you guys here. Lots of videos coming. I was anticipating potentially getting a position somewhere to talk about the Leafs more often, and it was going to slow videos down here, but that is not the case. So I will be making tons of content for this channel, and that's the goal anyway. So again, the Leafs lost in round one last year. Okay, they lost to Tampa, a series that I actually thought that they could win, and that Tampa Bay team was really good, but this Leaf team was really good. They had some shaky, hot and cold goaltending at points. They had some shaky defense at some points. They had some shaky goal production at some points. But I think the team delivered in most areas, and that's what we have to look forward to, is that this team needs to be built different. And I think in the offseason, this team was actually built different. They lost some key players. I mean, most notably, Jack Campbell is now an Edmonton Oiler, but I think that the way that this team is built, especially in the bottom six, they're going to look a lot different. But briefly, looking at the numbers from last year, obviously Austin Matthews, the 60 goals, 100-point season, like 106 points. This guy was absolutely dynamic. You had Mitch Marner with 97 points. You had Nylander with almost a point per game. You had Tavares with almost a point per game. Morgan Rielly, 68 points. Michael Bunting took a massive step. You know, for all the flack that Kerfoot takes, he was a 50-point player. You got goal production from Engvall. Mikheyev is gone now, but, you know, he gave you guys, 21 goals, and he's already injured to start the season. But even Andre Kasha, David Kampf, like, there was just good production. Shout out to Jason Spezza as well on his retirement. But they got production. And then in the playoffs, the guys that you needed to show up showed up. Matthews had 9 points in 7 games. Marner 8 and 7. Nylander a point per game. Tavares almost a point per game. Same thing with Rielly. And you got some decent production. But again, it was the bottom of the lineup that wasn't necessarily able to give you that that third line production that you need in the playoffs. Those guys that could make a difference in the playoffs. And I think that the Leafs have addressed that on both the defensive end and also a little bit of the physicality things. So another thing I want to bring up before we look into some of those new names is that the Toronto Maple Leafs will be operating with virtually no cap space. They're going to be using LTIR. It's going to be pretty nuts, but you're going to see some cap shenanigans, and that's part of the reason why a guy like Nick Robertson isn't starting with this team. Is because, Dennis Mulligan had a good camp. And when guys have good camps, you can't send them down because of waiver eligibility. Robertson can be sent down, so it's going to be a little bit tough at first. But these were the lines. Shout out to @Leafs Updates. He or she just posted this I believe 5 hours ago or something like that. But the final practice before the season starts, this is what the lines are looking like. Of course, Bunting, Matthews, Marner as that top line. Nylander, Tavares, Malgin, who will get a shot on that second line after having a little bit of chemistry with Nylander. And we'll see if Tavares is good to go. If Tavares can't play, you're going to see Nick Robertson get the emergency call-up. Then you have Engvall, or actually they might play short. We'll have to see. But Engvall, Kerfoot, and Järnkrok on that third line. So again, they added a guy like Järnkrok. He can score some goals. He has some depth, but he is a, smart two-way player. So making that third line a line that can score, but also a line that will shut you down. And then that fourth line, which is going to be a physical and just annoying defensive line, which is what the Leafs need. Zach Aston-Reese, David Kampf, and Obey Kubel. So this is going to be a really, really good fourth line. I think it's going to be a good bottom six. They don't have to do a ton. They don't have to score a bunch. They just have to make sure other teams don't score, and that's their job. And they have to play boring hockey sometimes. And then on defense, as you'll see, Timothy Liljegren is not in the lineup. He has a hernia, so I believe he had surgery. So Riley Brody as that top pairing, Muzzin and Hall, and then Giordano and Sandin. So we get a full season of Gio, and Sandin signed that contract, so we're glad to have him in the lineup. And then the biggest question mark that people are talking about is the goaltending, and that's Matt Murray and Samsonov. Now, what I expect from this team is, like I said, a much better bottom six. They don't need to score the lights out, but you've seen guys like Kerfoot and Kampf, they're able to score, and even Engvall. So you're going to get that secondary scoring. Järnkrok has shown in the preseason a little bit that he's got a bit of that scoring touch, and he showed it before in other parts of his career. So I'm not really worried about that. You're looking for guys like Malgin and Robertson when he gets his opportunity to come into the lineup and play good hockey. But I'm just really excited for that bottom six because we know that guys like Matthews, Marner, Tavares, Nylander are going to score the lights out. They usually do. The blue line, not too many changes, but Gio getting a full season of him, learning from, young guys learning from him. And when Liljegren comes back, it's going to create an interesting dynamic. If somebody's not playing well, specifically a Justin Hall, maybe they trade him. I don't know. We'll have to see. But again, going back to it, the goaltending is going to be the biggest question mark. And if we're looking at Matt Murray, some people would say it's concerning that the Leafs are going with him and, trying to win hockey games with a guy that wasn't so good last year. But I have to remind you guys, first of all, that he's not, the oldest guy. I believe he's 28 years old. Yeah, 28 years old. And if we look at his numbers, he's had some really good seasons, and he's obviously not been so good the last couple. But again, when you're playing for a team like the Ottawa Senators, who had probably one of the the worst blue lines in the entire NHL, when he was there, they've obviously upgraded a little bit, but not so much. You're not going to perform. So I think the Leafs have a much better blue line, and you can say whatever you want, but they definitely have a better blue line than the Ottawa Senators. They have a better team than the Ottawa Senators. And if that's the case, you've seen his numbers playing in front of better teams, and we've seen how he's looked so far in the preseason. He looks a little bit comfortable. The Leafs have made him very comfortable with obviously having a coach that he's played for before, a GM that he's played for before, a goalie coach that he's played for before, and probably some teammates. These guys, a lot of these guys have played together before. So you're getting a little bit more comfort with Matt Murray, and I hope that he has a big rebound season because honestly, I do believe that he'll be much better. And then you have Samsonov, who's only 25, and what a lot of people have said is that he hasn't unlocked that full potential. Now, what I want to point you guys to is the number of games played. The Leafs are not going to expect him to play 44 games this year. And he actually played that many games and didn't have the greatest numbers, but they also weren't the worst numbers. This is a 25-year-old goalie that almost played 50 games last season. When he's played at a smaller sample size, even at 26 games played, his numbers are a .913 and a 2.55 goals against. That's pretty good. If you can rely on him for 25 to 30 games and he can keep that save percentage in the 9-10 area and, the goals against in the 2.5, 2.7 area, you can't ask for more. So I think it's all about how many games he played, and with maybe a little bit less of amount of games that he's going to play, he'll be in that comfort zone and he'll look a lot better. So I think the goaltending is definitely the biggest question mark. But I also think that you're going to have to look from, like I said, from guys like Malgin, Robertson, Yarncrook. Hell, you can even throw guys like Kerfoot and Nylander in there. You want to see if those guys can give you that really, really good secondary scoring like a guy like Nylander would. Or, that even that third and fourth line scoring that you need that can push a team over the top. So I want to see if the bottom six changing this year and having a different dynamic will make this team that much better, because I actually do believe that that's the biggest addition to this team, is just the restructuring of that bottom six. Sheldon Keefe's job is probably on the line this year. Kyle Dubas, more than any time, has his job on the line this year. I'm predicting the Leafs to be second in the division. I'm not going to say who I think is first because I don't know. But I just don't think that this is a team that's going to win the division. But I think that they're a team that could definitely be a good number two because I don't know. I think there's some tweaks that they need to make. And if they make them before the deadline and they're in a good spot, maybe they win the division. But it's going to take some tinkering. But I think that this is a really good team, and I'm excited to see what they can do this year. But again, biggest question marks, goaltending and depth. And then because I want to see if they actually perform. And then I think money in the bank, you're going to have Matthews have a big season. And I actually think Nylander scoring 40 goals this year. I think he could score 40 plus. And if people don't agree with me, that's fine. But I want to hear your predictions down below, what you guys think. If you are new here, make sure to like this video and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Join the squad. Go Leafs, go. New season starting tomorrow at the time of recording this. But I'm ready. Peace.